Brooksaw Antiques here. Today I'm going to show you how to remove the rollers on an antique Royal 10 typewriter. The tools I have are 2 screwdrivers, one really small thin tip and one longer thin tip with a bigger grip, and 2 pairs of pliers, plus my 3D printed rollers that are now available on my shop. Link below in the comments and the description. First thing we're going to do is remove this left knob. It's got 1 screw on this model. Some models will have 2, but I just loosen it enough to pop it off, and then I put the screw back in so that doesn't get lost. Next thing, I'm going to keep this right knob on, but I'm going to remove 2 screws in the inside area. So I'll zoom in on that. This bottom screw has a little longer neck on it, so it fits into a little hole. The top screw is a little bit shorter, but you can tell the difference. See the little neck on the end? This top screw is just a little bit shorter, and it doesn't go into a hole, it just goes into a smaller indentation. So that's how you tell the difference between those 2 screws. Now you can pull the rod right out, and let me try to zoom this camera back out. There we go. And this end will have is slotted, and I'll show you why. But you want to make sure you always pull this rod out from the right side, because it's got this little washer in there, and it only allows the slotted end to go through it like this. And it goes right through that little washer. So now we have to remove this silver paper tray. I believe it's called a paper tray. So I'm going to use my smaller screwdriver to remove these 2 screws on the top, and these might be hard to get off on some older ones with a lot of rust, but just be careful not to bend this thing. It's really thin metal, and it will cause the paper not to feed properly if that's bent. So now we have access to the rollers. So this is the main big roller, and this is, they both should just pop right out. And this is a smaller roller. Okay, so I'm going to start with the small roller first. I'm going to use these 2 pliers, one on each side of these nuts here. One grips, and the other one's going to turn. And one of the 2 nuts should loosen. So whichever one that is, then you start taking that off, which is this side. And I'm going to put this little nut in my cup over here so I don't lose it. I got this little cup. And so now I'm just going to slide these off, all of them. And I have this little trash bin. So what I'm going to do is each one of these rollers, I'm just going to pull the rubber off just by like squeezing it and pulling it. Sometimes it'll come off easy, sometimes not. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's real soft. This one's really soft, and it's coming off pretty good. You just want to make sure you try to get as much residue off as possible so we can slide on the 3D printed rollers. So this one's pretty good. You can have a little bit of residue and it'll still slide. It's just a lot harder to get on sometimes when there's a lot of residue. So I'm just going to try to peel off as much as I can. And you could take it to a wire wheel if you have one to get it all off, or you can just take your time, get it off. So there's still a little bit of residue, but I'm going to attempt to put on a roller. So this one goes to the bigger of the set. So I'm just going to put it on there and just fit it right over it, just like that. Nice and easy. And then I'm going to put this onto And you need to get some of this grease off too, or this gunk that's in there. Just take a rag or something and just get some of that gunk off so the rollers will slide good. Okay, so I'm gonna do the rest of them with fast forward. Kill it. Now that I have all my rollers installed, I'm going to put on the nut and hand tighten it as much as I can. And then I'm going to take my pliers. You just want to be careful with these because you could strip the nuts. You don't really need to tighten these that much. Just enough so they don't fall off. And make sure that all the rollers can spin freely. And then I'm going to put this on. Okay, so this can only go on in one direction. So we got the 3 hooks here, and we're gonna line up, we're gonna push this roller all the way to the end and line it up with the end of that, where that nut meets the hook. And then I'm gonna slide this roller so that fits into that hook, and the last one fits. Just move the rollers back so they can fit on. Now, if you try to put this on the wrong way, as you can see, you put it on like this and it won't fit on that second hook. So you just got to make sure that you're on the right direction, and it should sit nice and flush, just like that. And it spins nice and easy. Okay, now we have the bigger roller, and you don't have to take the screws off, the nuts off on this one. So I'm going to leave those on. And I already did take off some of the material. This material is really hard to get off, so I'm going to use my wire wheel and come back. Okay, the wire wheel worked really good. Yours might have that black material and it's a lot easier to get off, but this one was like a custom blue roller and it was just a little hard to get off, so I used my wire wheel. Now I have my 3D printed roller, and I'm just going to slide that right on, just like that. Easy and nice and snug like the rest of them. Perfect fit. Okay, so now I'm going to put this on, and this one just fits right on. Doesn't matter the direction, just fits right on and nice and easy. Make sure it spins. Now we have both rollers in. We're gonna put this paper tray back in, and you gotta make sure that these little flaps on the end are flipped up. They're spring loaded, and it just helps hold the paper down. But they gotta be in front of it when you set this. And take my 2 smaller screws. And these might not be magnetic enough, so you might need to use your fingers. Nice and snug, not too tight. And the rollers are rolling still. Now I'm going to put the platen on. And this thing is spring loaded so that you can push that in and then push in. See, now you can see these little flaps here go on the platen to hold the paper down a little bit. Okay, now I'm gonna zoom out. And we're gonna slide this in, and remember that this slot here goes through that washer, so you need to kind of try to find it by, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of turning the knob a little bit to try to find that slot. And then once you find it, go all the way in just like that. And then this, then you can see the screw hole. And you want to line that up so it's a nice opening. And you're going to take your longer screw that has a little neck. And I like to get right on top of it so that way I know the screw is going in straight, because you could easily strip these, and then if you do that, you're in trouble, because these can break off inside of there and then they can just never be removed. So just be careful with that. Make sure it's threaded in properly when you start threading it. If it has any kind of resistance when you're putting it in, then just take it out and try a different angle. But it's best to just go from the top like this, so that way you know you're going in straight. Just straight down. And those two screws are in. And then now I'm going to put in my left knob. And this little thing goes in there. What that does is it's a function to disable the line space. And you can watch one of my full function videos to see why that works. And by the way, you want to line up the screw here with, there's a little indentation that you could see on the top of that rod. And that's where you want to line the screw up with. If you try to line it up with that slot, it's going to be loose. It's never going to be nice and tight. So you just want to tighten that on there, on that indentation, on the flat indentation. And now we have a nice smooth platen, and I'm going to load a paste to make sure it works. Like butter, nice and smooth. Perfect.